Hello, everyone. Welcome to Overclocked. Back from a little hiatus, which, my fault. I'll take responsibility for that. I had to procreate.
Boo! Procreation.
Back after 10 months, Dan. It was a long journey.
Yes, but we can talk about not babies today, which I'm looking forward to. We're talking about PC games, as is our tradition on this here podcast.
Kind of your baby, though, Dan. PC games.
Yes, for much longer.
Yeah.
My other child. I don't know if I can claim to be the father of PC gaming, but
IGN.com. Damn.
I mean,
Stapleton.
not that you know of, Dan.
PC gaming.
No, well, yes, that's true. Anyway, PC gaming, vibrant as always. I guess Mitch is not here. Mitch is off in Tokyo.
Mitch is in Japan, where they don't do a lot of PC gaming. I don't know if I trust him anymore.
It's getting more I think coming out of TGS, there's probably going to be more PC gaming news than like Xbox news.
One of my favorite PC games I ever played at TGS was actually one where you sat on a witch's broom and you had to draw symbols to actually get the game to do anything with your hand. It was quite incredible. I have no idea what the name of it was, but. Yeah, you can find some really weird PC games at Tokyo Game Show when you're there.
I mean, things like Tales of Zestiria or whatever. That's coming out on PC.
Yeah, absolutely. Bandai Namco likes to do that with their their games more often these days. Hopefully, with greater and greater levels of success.
I think Capcom just said that the PC is now their lead platform for digital distribution. Like their most profitable platform. Mm-hmm. So has
a PC always been the lead platform for digital distribution, though?
Not for Capcom.
Sure, not for Capcom though. Right, absolutely. But
fair enough.
Mega Man Legends just came out on PC,
so. And Street Fighter 4 found a very healthy family audience on PC once they release it.
As will 5, I'm sure.
Yep, absolutely.
So that's probably a trend that will continue.
Yeah, I wasn't kidding about that broomstick game though. You might have thought that was a joke. There are some weird, crazy PC games you can.
It wasn't a joke. It just wasn't a game, Tal. It was it was a nightclub.
It actually called Witch's Brew. Yeah,
it's a place you went.
But one of our main topics today I want to cover though is all about PC games. What am I saying? This whole podcast is, but it doesn't really apply in Japan. I think is where I was going for that, because I don't think there's a big StarCraft 2 community in Japan. Japan not probably big on RTSs.
Much bigger in Korea, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah,
Korea's the
a short skip away from there to South Korea. Also, North Korea, I don't think has a big StarCraft 2 scene.
No, I mean, it's safe to say they don't.
They've had a secret StarCraft scenes behind the Iron Curtain. Yep. We don't really know.
But StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void.
What if that's just all they've been doing in North Korea? Just breeding great StarCraft players. And just in a couple of years, they're just going to unleash them, and all the tournaments are just going to turn their way. Wow.
That would be an amazing story.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully they don't wait too much longer with that plan, because the big question here, so after StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void comes out on November 10th, same day as Fallout. When they announced that, that it's coming out the same day as Fallout, I just kind of pictured Blizzard unfurling a picnic blanket on the train tracks. It's like, what are you doing?
Well, here's my thing, though. Anything that comes out within 3 months of Fallout, I'm going to be like, am I going to have time to play this?
Sure.
Because, I'm really going to want to play Fallout for a long, long, long time, right?
So. I want to play Legacy of the Void, too. My question is, why put it out on that day?
Yeah.
Any day other than that, you could be one of the...
Maybe try to come a little bit earlier.
Right. I mean, you'd be the biggest game talked about that day. On that day, you'll be second, maybe, if you can also beat out Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
But it's do you want your game to get attention beyond the core fan base or not? And I guess they don't really care at Blizzard, because they've got a big fan base that's going to buy it. I'm going to play that game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's going to be. I don't know if they're going to be losing sales because they're coming out on the same day. Because I do think, not that it's totally different crew, but I think the people who are really into StarCraft are going to get.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not like they're going to miss that just because Fallout's coming out that day.
But I mean, we happen to run IGN, the biggest game site on the planet. What's going to be the number one story on IGN that day? It's not going to be StarCraft.
It'll probably be Fallout Day.
Right. So, and it's like if they came out a week later, it could have been StarCraft, and it could have gotten just more attention. And attention is sales. If people, if people come and see a game, it's like, oh yeah, that game's out. That looks interesting. Or they see our review, and if our reviewer loves it and recommends it, somebody might get it that wouldn't otherwise have gotten it.
Yep.
So,
sure, but that'll still be true. That'll still be true either way, though, right? If someone wasn't going to get it and we recommend it, they're still gonna. I mean, that doesn't change because Fallout's there as well. The other thing about it, though, is that development cycles are extremely long and costly things, as we all know.
Well, I was going to say, we're talking about two games that are coming out on the exact same day that were super. I mean, these are companies that are known for their long development times, right? Because they make these really big, in-depth games, and especially with the case of StarCraft, it was about 10 years before we saw the sequel finally come out. Now it's been what?
I think it's 2 years.
2 years since the last release.
Yep.
And Fallout, it's been 7 years. Is that right? Something like that. Well, New Vegas was what, 5 years ago?
Yeah, I think it's 5 years since New Vegas.
4 or 5. Yeah, so I mean, these are both highly anticipated, games that we don't see really regular drops for too. So that's kind of interesting.
And also both franchises from the 90s.
Yeah,
early 90s. Well,
mid-90s. I think though often we make, and you touched on it before. We can. It's easy for us since we play everything and we like such a wide berth of games. Even if you're just looking at the PC, we all have many multiple genres we care about on the PC.
Sure.
I think we're maybe underestimating also the idea that. The Fallout people are just going to buy Fallout, and then the StarCraft people are just going to buy StarCraft. And there are people who play both. I'm not going to say there's no.
I do.
Yeah, sure. So do I. But then there's people who are literally they're all about that particular franchise. They've been waiting for years for it.
And I have to say, I used to be a big RTS player. I just don't play that many RTSs anymore, though. I think it used to. Well, number one, I think I got burnt out because I played a whole lot of them, and there was a long stretch there in the early to mid 2000s where there were a lot of bad ones back to back to back.
Sure.
No, I'll still play stuff like Company of Heroes was probably the last big RTS that I really got into, really enjoyed.
1 or 2?
2. Well, 1 as well. I mean, both of them. Like I really like that series. I like 1 a little bit better.
One's a lot better.
And I like the expansions for 1 as well. Like really played a lot of Company of Heroes. But I really used to be into, Command & Conquer and Red Alert was a series that was huge, coming off of Dune 2 as well. Like I loved Dune 2, right?
A fun aside, Command & Conquer Red Alert 2 is free on Origin right now.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, try it out.
Yeah.
If you haven't tried it, definitely try it out.
Great cutscenes.
I think it's just because it's, I've got just a little burnout on them. And I think I've never been that much of a StarCraft player. I played a little bit of StarCraft 2. I played more of the original StarCraft back in the late 90s. But yeah, I'll probably check this one out, but I don't expect to spend as much time, for me as a personal, preference. I don't plan to spend much time in that as I do in Fallout 4, which is going to just consume my world when it comes out.
It's a question of multiplayer versus single player, right? Like I'm kind of burnt out on RTS multiplayer as well. Like I was into StarCraft 2 multiplayer for a while. I was never good, but I was okay. But it's just
not as good as the North Koreans, Dan.
Yeah, probably not. But it's like a very stressful thing to play.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely it is.
Yeah, it's kind of a young man's game. We'll put it that way. I think we aged out of that one, Tal.
Yeah,
but
got the arthritic wrists.
Yeah. But it's just you have to keep so many plates spinning at so fast.
Literally, not literally, but yes.
But
and by literally I mean figuratively.
That it's just tiring and exhausting. I kind of prefer playing the single player at this point. So that kind of brings me to my question, which is,
I think for me too, like the sitting of something like
let me say my question.
No, I'm not. The sitting of Command & Conquer was something that was a little bit more military based and something real world that I kind of got into a little bit more than the super sci-fi of StarCraft and the alien races. And of course you had the Marines as well, but But what was your question, Dan?
The question is, after StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void comes out, do base building focused RTSs have a future?
I think in order for them to have a future, so there's 2 angles you come from this problem at. So first is from the competitive standpoint, from the competitive audience, and the thing is the big problem with base building focused RTSs like StarCraft is that you end up as a spectator experience, you have this opening 10 minutes that can often be very dull. It's not always very dull, especially earlier in the game's life. Like early in StarCraft 2's life, when people were still coming up with and developing new openings and different kinds of openings, seeing how one person could be going with like a crazy proxy 2 racks, like no gas, kind of setup, and then the other person doesn't scout it. Will they see it? Will they not? If they don't, they're dead. If they do, then maybe they can turn it around, and it turns into an interesting long game or whatever. That whole dynamic can be interesting, but the longer a game, the deeper into the game's life it goes, the more the openings just become kind of stale and static, and it just becomes 10 minutes of the game that no one wants to watch.
I mean, that's true to some extent, except what these expansions do is completely shake that up. They change the rules. Like I believe that
for a bit, yeah.
Legacy of the Void is drastically speeding that up, as I understand it.
Well, I still think when you say is there still a world for base building RTSs? I think there's certainly a world for StarCraft. I don't know if there's a world for other games within that genre, though.
And there's not going to be another StarCraft for how long?
Another 2 or 3 years.
Could be another 10 years.
Yeah, well, that's true.
This
is the one. Yeah, this is it. That's true.
Yeah, this one puts a cap on the StarCraft 2 story. After this, and with no Command and Conquer around anymore, and Company of Heroes, like maybe they'll do a 3. I don't know if 2 did super well for Sega.
And it can be argued that we were having this discussion before. Company of Heroes 2 has base building in it. It's not completely removed from that, but it really is more about map control and going out on the map and taking.
Right. It's not about resource collecting like the traditional StarCraft CNC.
I will say one of the RTS series that I've been into throughout the entire life cycle has been the Total War series, but it's not a base building series.
Yeah,
right. It's more of a strategic, real time war.
And let's be very clear that strategy games and tactical games are alive and well. But this particular brand
with the base building, yep.
Right, the old school, CNC, Dune, StarCraft style does seem to be dying out because after StarCraft, like unless Blizzard makes another StarCraft or goes back to the Warcraft well, which I would be very surprised to see them do. Like nobody else really has the kind of star power to push an RTS, like an old school RTS.
Either the star power or the craft,
right?
Yeah, but I think also another element of it that we're not necessarily thinking about is that for so long, that element, that part of the game, even for casual players, hasn't really been interesting. It's been mostly the same thing. Do I want Unit X? Okay, I do. So then I build this structure, and then I have Unit X.
Build your resource extractors. Build your vehicle builders. Build your barracks. That kind of thing.
It's a physical manifestation of a tech tree.
Yeah,
exactly. Now, what can change that though is if companies start taking a little more creative license with the base building element and make placement more meaningful and make the way in which you build up your base more distinct. So what I'm getting at here is Petroglyph, with Grey Goo, and then with Universe at War before that. Experimented with some pretty out there interesting ideas about how you can make base building a little bit more distinct and a little bit more dynamic and interesting and fun. And I feel like that's really the direction we have to go. If that style of RTS is going to survive, it's going to require people to rethink their ideas about what makes that part of the game fun and make some new mechanics and take some risks around it.
Right, and absolutely. Like I also want to be clear that it's not like no one is making RTSs, traditional RTSs. This year alone, we saw Grey Goo. We saw. Let's see, I wrote some down here. We saw Active Aggression that just came out. Mm-hmm. We saw Ethereum, which was kind of a lower profile one.
You're playing Satellite's Reign right now? Yep.
Satellite Reign is not an RTS.
Oh, it's not? Okay.
No, that is a tactics game.
Okay.
It's Syndicate, basically.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And we saw they did an update of Planetary Annihilation called Titans, which had a single-player campaign. And we saw, of course, Homeworld Remastered Collection, if we're counting re-releases. I guess they've also released like Age of Empires 2 in HD and Age of Mythology.
To me, it's kind of like what we're seeing with space combat sims now, right? People are still making them, but I don't think we're going to hit a golden age like we did with combat space sims in the 90s, 2000s. Same time era for RTSs, right? Really late 90s to mid to late 2000s. They were really popular, but now we just haven't really seen. I mean, honestly, since about the 3 or 4 years after StarCraft and No More Westwood, we haven't really seen a lot of big power players in that base building RTS mode anymore, and genres shift and then they change, right? And that's where we got things like MOBAs.
Yeah, and let me tell you what's coming up that's been announced. There's Ashes of the Singularity from Stardock, which is their big like DirectX 12 showcase. It kind of looks like Total Annihilation or Supreme Commander, I should say.
Mm-hmm. Oh, cool.
And they're talking up all the particles they can have flying around because of the X12. It looks neat. We'll see. Offworld Trading Company is it's also being at least co-published by Stardock. That's Soren Johnson's economic RTS. He was the lead designer of Civilization 5. 4. Sorry. Yeah, I think I've got that right. It's an economics based RTS, so it's all about base building. So it's kind of gone the other direction. That one's in early access. There's Halo Wars 2.
Right. Sure.
Which is announced for PC as well as Xbox.
And the base building in Halo Wars was very kind of modular, and I don't want to say set and preset.
It's simplified.
Yeah, it's very simplified. Yeah.
Right. But it is. You do have to maintain a base. But
they really. I mean, it has been too more focusing on the combat than the base building in more of the recent games. I'd say, like in the past, 8 years. The modern era of RTS.
We've also got Homeworld Shipbreakers, which Gearbox has officially granted the Homeworld license. It's a ground-based RTS set in the Homeworld universe. We don't know if it's going to have base building or not. We haven't really seen much of it. We also know that Chris Taylor is working on something at Wargaming. Now that Wargaming bought Gas Power and turned it into Wargaming Seattle, they're doing something.
Now you're making me think of games like Ground Control and World at War, which were such good games.
Yep.
Again, maybe I'll go back and play some of the Earth 2150. Maybe I'll go back and play some of these games now.
Ground Control and Ground Control 2 came out on Steam not too long ago.
Yeah, Ground Control was great. Yep. I love Ground Control.
That was one of the ones that really kind of pioneered the territory control. At least Ground Control 2 did. I'm not sure. I forget how Ground Control 1 did. But I think both of those were mostly tactical. Like, neither of them had base building.
Yeah.
And Earth 2150 was interesting because it allowed you a very fine degree of customization of individual units, the kind that you only usually see in like a 4X game where you can custom build like templates for a ship or something.
That's another genre you don't see as much of anymore.
Sure, right.
Yep.
This was an RTS that had that, but taking that same idea, like if they could apply that to base building, I would love it if I could actually design, my own outposts, to design my own buildings to that level of detail.
And doing all that stuff in real time was always kind of a real hobbling kind of thing. But you've also got a bunch of tactical strategy games like the Total War games. We've got the Warhammer Total War or Total War Warhammer coming. We've got Total War Arena. We've got probably the next one is already in the works. And there's Battlefleet Gothic Armada, which also looks like a tactical RTS of naval combat.
When's the first-person shooter genre going to wane? I'm ready for something new to happen there. I really am. Yeah. It seems like that's still the bulk of everything, and that's kind of been going on for the past 15, 20 years.
Yeah, the thing with first-person shooters is that the reason why they I think endure is because from the moment you start playing, you're doing the thing that ostensibly is what that game is about. If you're playing a first-person shooter and your goal is to shoot a gun, you will probably be doing that within the first minute of playing your first-person shooter.
And VR certainly isn't going to help move away from that genre, because that's going to be the perfect kind of genre for a VR set.
I mean, I would like to see a VR RTS, because you've got like some of the demos we saw for Oculus were kind of like you put it on and you've got a table in front of you.
Exactly. I was just going to talk about AirMech. Right. I played the AirMech VR version at E3, and that was really cool, because it was basically like you had a little game table in front of you, and you were, unfortunately you didn't actually use your hands, I was using a mouse and keyboard, but it was like you were looking and you looked over here and you could see this part of the board, and you can it was really cool. It was like playing Star Wars chess.
It was like the first trailers for Ruse.
Exactly.
Where you were like,
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, and like
it was really neat.
Ruse would be a cool game to play in VR.
Oh, absolutely would. Yeah.
Yeah, and UGen Systems, they're the ones that made Active Aggression as well. So yeah, I mean, like what I'm saying with all this is that the genre is kind of alive, but there's no star power behind it anymore. And
so you tricked us with your question, Dan.
Well, that's my interpretation of it. Is that the genre will carry on, but I don't see there being another like super high profile thing on the level of StarCraft.
Well, again, I think that's like when you talk about the golden age, there's always going to be people who are making every genre game, right? There's still people who make point and click adventures, but it's certainly not the golden age like it was back in the early 90s and mid 90s for point and click adventures.
Well, and I'm just curious, Dan. Like, you've played a lot of RTS games, and you've, for a living, you create, you critique games and dive into mechanics. Like, what kind of changes do you think you'd make to like the base building phase of one of these RTSs to make it more dynamic or make it more immediately fun and enjoyable and interesting to people?
I mean, I do kind of personally. I like the streamlining of it. I think that some games have done
like Kingdom of Heroes does. Yeah, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, I like pretty much all ends of that spectrum. I like Supreme Commander, how it kind of took it up a notch by adding adjacency bonuses and stuff like that.
Sure, yeah.
But I also like what Petroglyph did in Universe at War and in why can't I remember the new one? Grey Goo, where they just do different spins on it and have mobile bases. Like the actual goo itself was a mobile base.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of been some of the more modern takes on it. Is that the classic one would be like you start out from scratch every single time, right? Whereas a more modern take is maybe you have a small force or a small scenario that you have to go for, or a small base already built, and you're adding on to that, or some resources already gathered up. So they do try to get you into it a little bit quicker now. I think again, back in the day, day, like you would literally have nothing, and you're like, I'm this military group that has no resources and no buildings, and I just have to start from square one every single mission that I go on, right?
And the strange thing about it too that comes from that is that and you were kind of saying this before, is that these buildings end up just being like a kind of like representation or abstraction of like technological progress in a for a civilization or for an armed group. So it's kind of weird that it's like, hey, if I want more military, if I want more infantry, I need to build a building that makes humans appear. It's like, that's a little bit strange.
That's what Dan just did, by the way. He made humans appear.
I don't know if I built a building. Poof. But anyway.
Dan was playing an RTS. It was a barrack. When a man loves a woman and he builds a barrack, Dan.
Moving on.
All right.
Tal, you have been having some exciting adventures in Skyrim modding.
Yeah, well, like I said, I like going back and playing old games. I recently talked about playing Ultima Underworld again. Did not finish it. That game does not age that well. But I still had a very fun experience, very nostalgic, really enjoyed that. But I decided to go back and play Skyrim because it's been actually about 3 years.
That old game?
That old bean.
That is a fairly old game at this point. It's 5 years old.
Well, so I just found a utility, and obviously it's been out there for a while, but I didn't know about it, where you could take I played it on Xbox 360, the first, playthrough, and I put in, I was up to like level 50. Right, playing it. So I was like, okay, I want to play Skyrim again, but I don't want to start over from square one. And I found out that I could transfer my save from my Xbox 360 to my PC. So I was like, oh, great.
Wow.
Yeah, so I pulled over my Khajiit Stealth Archer, and I was like, I'll run around in PC because I want to see some of the mods for PC, because that's one thing I missed by playing it on the 360. And so I got into it this past weekend and ended up pretty much this entire weekend playing Skyrim. And, again, I'm level 50, so nothing's like too challenging whatsoever. But I am having fun exploring, and of course I installed all the mods that you would expect.
And you can always tell when someone on your Steam list is doing this, messing with mods, because they just keep relaunching the same game over and over and over again.
So I'm sure you saw this weekend me do that. Yeah.
Tal is playing Skyrim. Tal is playing Skyrim. Tal is playing Skyrim.
So, the inventory mod was a necessity to have, right? But there were some great map mods out there that allowed you to, say, pull up waypoints for your actual individual houses so you could fast travel to those, and just other various things. But I also found my very favorite one was that as a companion, I found a sloth mode. So Sloth from the Goonies, you can have as a companion, and he'll just go, Rocky Road, and he actually has a little bucket of Rocky Road that he can give you that'll heal you for health. And he just goes up and he has a Superman shirt, he has his pirate hat. It is so very good. But he just punches enemies, and when he comes at them, he actually has the dragon shout. But it's a Fusro Da, but instead he goes, "Hey, you guys!" And it's just my favorite thing to run around, the world and have him as my companion, and we're just messing things up. And I'm standing back arching while he's like going in and fighting and doing the shouts. And love it. So and it works really good. So just having a lot of fun with that game, but playing it in new and interesting ways. And that's one of the great things about mods.
Is there a UI mod that you're using in particular that you recommend?
Just Sky UI.
Yeah, Sky UI.
That's the pretty basic one.
Completely changed that game. I haven't messed with it in years. I imagine it's evolved since I played with it last. But like that.
The inventory management in Skyrim was the worst part of that game, right? Just that nothing was categorized. Everything was just a big bucket. It was just a pain in the ass when you had to go sell everything.
It was also built for consoles, so you to be read from across the room. When if you're playing on PC, you're like up close and everything is giant.
Yeah. Sky UI fixes everything, and then it's been great. So I've been really enjoying that. I've run into. I think I've gotten to the point where you saw me loading it a lot this weekend. I got to the point where maybe I've had too many mods on there now, and I'm trying to back out, and maybe some conflicts are happening. So I may need to start over and just reinstall or whatever, and go back to just the mods that I want to use. But I found like the Sloth mod has worked perfectly for me, so that hasn't been a problem at all.
Are you using a texture mod?
I did a lot of texture mods, and especially ones on the cities to make them better. So they'll just add more people, more animals, more trees and things like that. It just makes it feel more realistic.
More alive.
Yeah.
More like a place.
Yeah, so you go into Whiterun, and it actually instead of being so sparse and like 8 people in the village, you actually feel like it's a real place.
Still, the biggest problem with open world games, I feel like, is that they almost always feel like abandoned wastelands, even when they're not supposed to. Like, some of them are supposed to be abandoned wastelands, but even when they're not supposed to be, they often feel that way.
Well, back in the day, there weren't as many people. So.
Back in Skyrim time.
Exactly.
And even something as recent
Another super helpful mod that I'm using, one of the most helpful ones, is one that makes the books that you haven't read glow. So you can actually go into a place and, you go in and you see like 40 books out there. You're like, I don't freaking know which ones I've done or not. And, some of them give you skill boosts and stuff, but I just like kind of reading them too about the lore. And it's great because you see, a couple that are glowing blue and you're like, okay, I've never picked these up before. That's a really, really nice mod. So yeah, just little tweaks like that are really handy in the game. So I think I installed about 140 mods, probably a little much. I think I'm going to start.
Wait, is that an actual number?
Yeah, I think I literally installed that's a real literally about 140 mods onto my Skyrim game because I just fell into the hole. I fell into the rabbit hole.
What is wrong with you?
It gets
so.
I have an Iron Man companion. There's a Darth Vader armor sets. There's
so you weren't going for like any kind of thematic consistency. It's just like, hey, whatever's cool,
whatever's there.
Exactly. I just wanted to again because I hadn't played it on the PC. I wanted a chance to dive in and see as many mods as I possibly could. I have like a Japanese house now up on a hill. But yeah, now some conflicts are starting because there's way too much. And even though I've gotten some of the programs, I think it's loot that helps you figure out conflicts, and then you're able to load your mods. It kind of figure out which one should be loaded where. I'm still having some weird crashes now, so I think I need to back out and only load about 20 or 30 that are super, super, super handy.
And I imagine you're shopping for mods in the Steam Workshop.
Yeah, exactly. Since I have it on Steam, I mean, you could go through, what's the Nexus, right? Then you can go through Nexus as well. But I did a few of those manual installs, but since I already have Steam and I have Skyrim downloaded through Steam, just going through the Steam Workshop, it was just easier.
Yep. And like the advantage of still going to the reason why you would still go to the Nexus page is that you can get stuff on there that's not really compatible with Steam Workshop mods.
Yeah, absolutely.
It can get kind of a deeper level of access if they do things that Bethesda doesn't necessarily want them to do, and get kind of add-on toolkits kind of to mess with. So you can do a lot more if you're willing to get in there and really mess with it.
Then really dive in, yeah, exactly. And you can get whole new modules for that. I mean, you can get 20 hours of gameplay,
Easily.
new quests and things like that.
There have been entire, basically, expansions created.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible what the modders out there do.
What's the overall level of quality on those like fan-made expansions? Is the writing
Very
actually pretty good?
Yeah.
Even the writing is good?
Well, I mean,
on some of them, absolutely. Some of them people have spent, 2, 3, 4 years on making these things. So I was talking to Dan about a mod for Total War Medieval 2, I believe it was. That was a complete Lord of the Rings redo. And I mean, they even had, obviously unlicensed, but scenes from the movie that would come in for cutscenes and great music and characters and voiceovers and everything. And some of the modders out there just do really high quality, super great work. So some of the stuff you can get is fantastic.
I think like voice work is generally where a lot of them kind of show that they're not actually a professional studio working, just because they don't have access to the voice studios and professional actors. Some of them do have.
There are some companions out there that you can get that are fully voiced, that are actually voiced by voice actors that they've worked with, or at least people who they know who are voice actors. Yeah, it's really impressive.
Yeah,
now, there's some real crap out there, too. You have to weed through the real crap. And that's the great thing about Workshop, too, is that you can see the number of people who have it installed. You can see the general community rating on that. So I tried to get the higher quality stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff to sift through once you start going in.
There's also like entire collections that people have kind of bundled up into like an entire like recommended thing for mods, which is great because they've done the work of seeing what conflicts might arise for you. And so if you install a collection, you're probably not going to get a lot of conflicts.
And also what works together thematically. Like if you just want to play the best version of Skyrim, like the best modernized version of Skyrim, just what Skyrim is but turned up to 11. That's like it could take. If I wanted to do that, it would probably take me forever to find the exact right mods and the ones that won't conflict with each other.
Well, I think John Ryan did a roundup of some like how to make Skyrim.
You mean John Ryan of IGN Wikis fame?
That is what I mean. he did maybe he just did Fallout. I don't remember if he did Skyrim.
I think he did Skyrim.
He did Fallout 3 and he did New Vegas. I'm not sure if he did Skyrim. He probably did.
You're right. I know he did some Skyrim videos. But anyway, I mean, there's some great guides out there, too, for the things that you can install. And it's also very easy, even though I went beyond the lore. It's really easy to stick and stay within the lore with the things that are out there, but be able to beautify and modernize and make interfaces better and just generally make games work better with modifications.
Yeah, it's
without losing the true spirit.
It's a nice reminder. We look at on the console side, we see all the enhanced editions of games coming out. Skyrim and Fallout Bethesda hasn't bothered to do that.
Yep.
But even if they were to do that, like it would still not even compare to what you can do on PC and how good you can make it look and how flexible it is and how much better of a game you can make it with all these little tweaks and big changes to textures and effects and everything.
Yeah. Maybe they can do some tweaks to Metal Gear Solid.
That's an excellent thing to start talking about, I think.
Segue.
Is hey, how about that Metal Gear Solid PC version?
Sure.
I've been playing. Tal, you've been playing.
I'm playing
Vince,
a lot.
Vince, have you been playing on PC?
I haven't been. I mean, I've played a few hours on PC. I haven't put in tons of time. I've been mostly playing on the PS4 version, which I have like maybe 130 hours or so on it now at this point.
But the real question is how good of a PC port is this?
So it's funny because you and I discussed this a little bit this morning, and it really depends on the angle from which you come at it from. Like, I don't want to alarm anyone. I am on the Overclocked podcast here. I have certainly played PC games for about 15, 20 years, but I was a console gamer first, so that's still usually kind of the perspective that I come from these multi-platform games on. And certainly I think it's not a stretch to say that Metal Gear is kind of like at home on consoles. So for me, when I'm looking at a PC port of a console game, all I'm looking for is does my controller does a controller work properly, and how
literally a gamepad,
right?
You're saying
right. A controller, right. And then also, how well optimized is it? Like, if I have a PC from 3 years ago or something, am I going to be able to have a positive experience? And from both of those angles, the PC version of Metal Gear Solid 5 seems terrific. But I know you come at it from a bit of a different. You're looking for other things, but I mean, as far as like, if you're worried, hey, I don't have a current gen console, and my PC is a little bit, kind of behind the times. The game is optimized quite well, and I've heard people talk about having maybe like 2-year-old rigs that they can still run it at appreciable settings and close
easily.
to 60 frames per second. You know,
but like Skyrim, the one thing I wish they would improve is have better UI on the PC.
So
they needed MGS UI. Now, unlike you, unless it's like something that's super actiony, and not even I play with mouse and keyboard on my PC games for the most part. Except for like a flight sim or something like that, right? Where I want to stick. So MGS, I'm playing with mouse and keyboard, and I'll tell you what, when I go into those consoles to get to the UI console to make selections, having to use the 1 and the 3 to go through there, and not being able to use my mouse wheel to scroll through the menus, oh my god, it just drives me crazy.
It seems so silly.
For me,
drives me crazy.
Yeah, I look at ports from two different angles. You've got the technical quality, like does it run well, does it crash or not, is it stable, and does it look good, and then you've got, does it feel like a PC game? And Metal Gear nails one of those.
Yeah.
It looks really good. It
plays
runs really well.
yeah.
It's stable.
I'm enjoying it on PC.
Oh, yeah.
But anytime I have to go into a menu, I'm just like, why?
It does not feel like a made-for-PC game, which is obviously it wasn't exclusively made for a PC game as a PC game. But
they should have kept those poor programmers off of their vacation even more to get the PC version really done in the menu system.
But it's like the thing is that when you look at the menu system, what's weird about it is that the UI itself is not ideal for PC, but it's not terrible as long as I can mouse through it.
It's terrible.
You can't mouse through it. That's the problem.
No, I'm saying that's what I mean. Like the way the UI is laid out, like the tabs, like that tab system is pretty common even in PC games.
The mouse does not appear.
But the fact that the mouse, exactly, that's the thing. The fact that it has no mouse support for those menus is really what the problem is.
Yeah, the layout of the menus is fine.
Right, that's what I mean.
It's just the functionality of the menus is the issue, right? Not being able to pick things with my mouse and having to go through with having to take my hand off of the WASD and actually move it up here to 1 and 3 is not good.
Yeah, it definitely feels like they intend for you to use a controller for this game, which, okay, but it's a game where I spend most of my time shooting.
I want to have sensitivity, right? I want a precise aim.
I definitely want to use a mouse in any game where I'm shooting. Like, and in general, as a PC gamer, like I want to use a mouse and keyboard whenever I possibly can. So
me too.
It's like if I'm playing a game where I'm driving a lot, then I'll want an analog stick. If I'm playing
God, I still played a lot of racing games in the 90s with the keyboard disc.
Me too.
It's horrible. I agree.
But if you're playing like a flight sim, you want a stick, ideally. And again, I've played a lot of those with the mouse and keyboard as well. But like for a game like this, a mouse and keyboard is perfectly well suited if they would facilitate it.
Yeah.
And they didn't really do a great job of that.
I just want my mouse wheel in the menus. That's all I want. Just the mouse wheel. I want to be able to look through things.
And again, it's totally tolerable. It's worth putting up with for a game like this, which is an outstanding game. It's disappointing that they didn't put in that basic level of mouse support.
It seems like how much work could that have possibly been?
Yeah.
Like I can't even think about how hard is it really to create a cursor?
Because it means in the menu I either have to move this hand around or I have to move my mouse hand off of something, right? Whenever I'm in there, and I want to be locked in when I'm kind of controlling, you know.
Yeah, sure. And it's disappointing, you know. And you know, again, you know, it's totally worth playing. And you know, I'm not gonna tell anybody don't play Metal Gear Solid because of this. But you know, this is the kind of Bush League approach that you see from like Codemasters racing games.
Right. Yeah. It's
wow, you got Bush League by Dan.
it's totally a matter of like not understanding like what the people native to that platform want, and like I think it's
that's so weird to me though, because Metal Gear's always been on PC. Like Metal Gear has always been on PC.
Oh sure, yeah, it's always been ported over.
I played Metal Gear 2 on PC.
Yeah,
I mean,
3 and 4 were not.
Yeah. 3 and 4 weren't? Okay. 2 was the last one I played, and that was on PC. So
yeah, and it came out much because it's
it did come out later. Yeah, it did come out later.
Yeah,
but I know. I mean, 1 and 2 were definitely on PC. So it's a series that have.
Oh, another UI complaint I want to raise. Every time I start up, I have to click through like literally 6 or 7 pop-ups about like apologizing, for the server.
Yeah,
that's a problem for us on the console as well. I'm just waiting for them to do something about that. I mean, I don't understand. Like, did they just not like who didn't think that like just keep the most current one? Like I literally here I am playing the game 2 weeks later, and I'm still seeing like notices, important notice with red all around it from like a week and a half ago. And
yeah,
and what's even dumber about that is that they put it before like all the loading screens, like all the NVIDIA stuff, all the logos. So you have to like you can't start it up, walk away, and then come back and click through it, and then you're just there. You've got to start it up, click through it, then go get a drink while you wait for all the NVIDIA way it's meant to be played, and like just stop.
That said, I agree. Annoyances with that, still a great game. I'm really having a good time with it.
If it weren't a great game, I wouldn't put up with that at all. but yeah, I've put in a bunch of time with it already. I'm not anywhere near done. I think I'm still at like maybe 10% completion, maybe.
I'm about there too. I think I'm on mission like 10 or 11.
Oh, you got plenty to go.
Yeah, it takes a long time to get through this game, and you know, partially due to the fact that it's really good at like distracting you and making you want to like replay the same mission over and over again just to try some different stuff.
And also, I'll just run around in the world and kind of just do nothing except for just explore and.
Yeah, whenever I finish a mission, I'm always like, well, there's an outpost.
Sheep.
There's an outpost right over there. I'm like, maybe there's a good soldier there. Maybe there's some resources there. Maybe I'll find a blueprint there. You know, it's not a super dense open world or anything like that. But there's everything that you can go and do.
Vince. Oh no, wait, can't use that excuse for there. Well, in Afghanistan.
On the topic of those annoying pop-ups, I am told that if you just turn off online mode at all, like completely, that those do go away.
I should do that then, because I'm not even doing anything with the online mode
yet. And half the time, like,
and you're not going to be able to do anything with it for quite a long time,
right? Until October, right? At least.
What's that?
Until October?
Oh no! It's the online elements are so October. What you're thinking of is Metal Gear Online 3 comes out. Comes out in October, and that's the online component.
Although on PC, I think it's actually going to be 2016. I don't think.
Oh, okay. All right, good to note. But there are online components. There is an online component, an awesome and quite full-featured online component for Metal Gear Solid 5, except it doesn't unlock until about, I would say, 75% of the way through the story, which
and even then the servers are down. So
the forward operating
the servers are fine now.
Well, they aren't really because I
keep having the message at least. Yeah.
Yeah, I have the message, but I also get periodically just says, oh yeah, you've been kicked off the servers.
Yeah, so the one thing I have seen is that if I stay idle for a really like if I leave my PlayStation just sitting there for a while, and I'm like, oh, I've got some I'm like letting some research project go.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, okay, it's 36 minutes till this research is done. I'm going to go and and do whatever and just let it run. And sometimes, I have seen it disconnect there, but it's funny. The first couple of days,
that is. I wish your research projects continued to go when you were off as well.
Yeah. That would be nice. It's fortunate, at least, that none of them are like super long. The more advanced ones towards the end of the game are like 2 hours.
Yeah,
but those are like
the longest ones I had about an hour and 15, maybe an hour and 20 so far.
Yeah, but no, but the thing that as far as the servers go, it's strange because a lot of people early on I had problems.
It definitely
but
does.
Since then I haven't had any issues. Like
it definitely, but it does boot you off for inactivity, which
it does.
Which happens to me a lot because when you have a newborn, you tend to be called away from your game every so often.
Yep.
So I'll pause it and come back to a message saying you've been kicked off the server.
Right.
Which again, I guess doesn't matter because I'm not at the point where I even need to be on the server.
You ever thought of maybe just getting a baby-sized Fulton and just having your baby floating next to you while you're playing? The baby will probably like that too.
Yeah. But I am grateful that this game does allow you to pause. That's nice.
Yeah, yeah. Unlike probably the last game the last console game ported over that you played.
But let me tell you the
I have to say though, not being somebody who played a lot of Metal Gear 2, 3 and 4 were just so I couldn't get into them because the cutscenes were so long. I just want to play a game. When I get into a game, I want to play it. So at least after the 45 hour-long prologue where I was a lot of crawling, I was very happy that I'm actually really playing a lot of Metal Gear instead of watching Metal Gear.
That's one of the reasons why I gave it a 10 because it's a player's game.
But let me tell you though the my Steam account, like the counter that says how many hours I put in is vastly inflated because of that same reason.
Oh right.
It's like I'll start playing, get in like 15-20 minutes and then have to pause and walk away, and I'm like, oh, I'll be back in a few minutes and start playing again. A few hours later I come back and meanwhile the Steam counter is still going up.
Dan, you spent 300 hours playing Metal Gear and you're only on mission 3.
Yeah,
what's going on?
Yep, that's pretty much the situation. I think I have left it running overnight at least once. But so I have no idea how long I've actually put in. I really wish that Steam would tweak that. Yeah, so it's like if it would know when you're not in a pause screen and know when you're not alt tabbed. If it weren't just looking at how long the process has been running, because I actually really like knowing how long I've played a game.
Oh yeah, and from a reviewer standpoint, like it's actually quite useful.
Absolutely,
it's nice to not have to like keep a log, or anything like that to know how long I've been playing something, because it's not a big deal, but in almost every review we want to give people a general sense of how long it took us to get through, so that they have an idea of like what kind of not that value is all about time to dollar, but people do care about that information, and it just makes it easier for us to get an accurate sense if that's something that's in there. Right?
Yeah, especially if you can talk about how long the actual storyline, quest line, or everything with the side quests and things like that. It's valuable information.
Yeah. But in any case, I guess the consensus is that Metal Gear Solid is a good PC port, not a great one, but certainly better than Batman Arkham Knight.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, hey, I would say the only issue really with the port is the way the menu system works and the UI system works for the most part. Again, there's some minor annoyances getting into it, and I agree with that too, with the menu system having to click a lot just to finally get to the title screen. But the game itself is really, really good. Have a lot of fun with it.
And also, I just want to point out too, because we discussed this a little bit, and that the UI problems really do go away if you play with if you're playing with a gamepad, and certainly understand that
Don't insult me, Vince.
What's that? Well, no,
I'm just kidding.
I know longtime PC players are they always want to play on their on mouse and keyboard. But that said, like if you are someone who can play both and feel comfortable on both, the skill ceiling that exists in Metal Gear is not such where you're like, hey, it's got to be headshots all the time. You got to be like, this is not Counter-Strike. Like if you're more comfortable playing that way, that's awesome. And certainly if you're proficient, you'll have a bit of an edge over everyone else. But if you're nervous that you will not physically be able to play the game with the level of precision that the game itself asks of you with a gamepad, that's not the case.
Do you want to be a badass super secret agent, Vince, or do you want to be like shooting people? Bah, 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 bah?
Well, I was a super badass secret agent, and I was playing on a stick, although on analog sticks. But yeah, would you be that much more badass if you were proficient with mouse and keyboard? Absolutely not saying that's not the case. But if anyone is out there thinking to themselves, oh, but without a mouse and keyboard, there's no way I'll be able to play the game at the level of proficiency that the game requires me to.
No,
that's not the case.
No, I didn't get a sense of that. But whenever I play PC games, the first thing I do is I like a really highly sensitive mouse, so I put my mouse sensitivity all the way up because I like to be able to just do that, to be able to like turn as far as possible, you know?
But
it's just the kind of gaming I prefer,
Sure.
In any case, it is very good to be back on Overclocked.
Welcome back.
Yeah, well, and good to have a show this week. We are very sorry we missed a few. But,
Bring your baby, Dan.
Yeah.
Next time.
But we look forward to many more episodes of Overclocked. So thank you guys for joining us.
Yay, PC gaming.
Woohoo!